Welcome to the online faith family of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. Our leaders, Bishop James and Pastor Kelly Renee Williams, want you to know that Spirit and Truth is a wonderful place to be. Join us for 1 hour in the Word with our pastor of spiritual formation, Reverend Dr. Thomasine Faulkner, and Bishop J.A. Williams.
Well, good evening, good evening. It is 7 o'clock p.m., Thursday, February the 12th, 2026. Welcome to Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. This is our online Bible study, 1 hour in the Word. I'd first like to thank you all who are joining in and tuning in and joining us. Please like and share. Hi, Tay. Tonight we're going to continue in our special series for Black History Month, Tales of Blackness, Then, Now, and Forever. Oh my. Stefani, Tina, Latoya, Erica. Look at all the people that signed on. I'm so glad to see everybody. Y'all make me feel really good when I can see you. Pastor Helen. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is just please be sure that you take the My One Word Challenge. Please take the My One Word Challenge and for 2026, lose that list of changes that you want to make and just choose one word. It's really simple. If you haven't done it, please be reminded that you just have to take step one, determine the kind of person you want to be. And by the end of the year, step two, identify the characteristics of that person, make the list, all right, and pray about it and talk to God about it and ask him exactly what he wants you to do and be. And then step three is just simply pick a word, one word, commit to that one word. If you haven't already done it, it's not too late. Do something with that word. You should have the definition, you should have a scripture. Now get things that are reminders of that word. And I always say that because I like to have reminders around me that remind me of my one word. Put it on the wall. The women who were at the retreat, we made little signs that have our word on it, and you can get a mug made with it or have a T-shirt made. So we're going to have some things to share with you during the year. Focus on your one word. That's it. Focus on your one word. The aim for this series is to remind us that we make Black history every day. Every day we make Black history. We are Black history. The scriptures for this series are found in Acts chapter 17, verse 26, and he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on all the face of the earth, and has determined their pre-appointed time and the boundaries of their dwellings. And then we have Isaiah 46 and 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. What are our definitions? Definitions are the word black history, the darkest color owing to the absence of complete absorption of light, the opposite of white, belonging to or denoting a human group having dark colored skin, especially of sub-Saharan African ancestry. Then the word history, the study of past events, particularly in human affairs, a continuous systematic narrative of past events as relating to a particular people, country, period, person, etc., usually written as a chronological account, a chronicle. Well, my first quote for today Good evening, LaDon and Minister Anthony Jones. First quote for today. It says, I am America. I am the part you won't recognize, but get used to me. Black, confident, cocky, my name, not yours, my religion, not yours, my goals, my own. Get used to me. Muhammad Ali. Well, the first thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to take another Black History quiz. So get your fingers ready to type it in. Who was the first Black person to hold a patent in the United States? The first one, Madam C.J. Walker, Ben Carson, Thomas Jennings, or George Washington Carver? Who was the first Black person to hold a patent in the United States? Last week, I think that they were kind of too easy for you, so I'm trying to make it a little more exciting, if you will. So you can type in A, B, C, or D. And while you're typing, I'm going to just do some highlights from last week's lesson. We talked about our spiritual African heritage. Good evening, Elder Tally. Africa is found throughout the pages of the history of the Bible. God is involved in the history of Africa in the Bible, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Too often, history has been written in ways that erase or minimize the contributions of people of African descent. But when we open the Word of God, we see our presence, our impact. I love it. Our legacy woven throughout the scriptures. We spent a lot of time last week discussing Bible characters and their roots. We talked about Jethro and Exodus to David's great grandmother Ruth, who was a Moabite. We talked about the book of Song of Solomon, which says Black women are beautiful. The New Testament tells the story of the Ethiopian eunuch in Acts 8 and Simon of Cyrene, who carried the cross of Jesus. We asked the question, what's in a name? And then we discussed the history of racial terminology used from African and colored to Negro and now Black and African American. Who have I have? George Washington Carver. Hi, Sheila. I have D, which is George Washington Carver. I have Steph. She's got Madam C.J. Walker. Hi, Renee. Well, so far, you should always pick the one you don't know. It is C, Thomas L. Jennings. The patent was awarded on March 3rd, 1821 for the discovery of a process called dry scouring, which was the forerunner of today's modern dry cleaning. Who knew? He had the first patent in the United States as a Black person. Well, we talked about, told a story about where would we be without Black people? What would everyday life be like without the contributions or inventions of Black people? And we had so many people who are Blacks who invented many things that we take for granted today. Did you know all of that? The broom, dustpan, typewriter, the furnace, air conditioning, blood bank. So I say to you, please don't just read about us 1 month of the year. We made life-changing contributions to the world. And then the last thing I talked about, Mr. Clean, how are you celebrating Black History Month? We gave you some suggestions, and visit a museum, watch a documentary, support Black-owned businesses, learn more about Black figures and their contributions, which I just told you to do. And finally, just read. Read. It's so much, especially during the month, that's being posted even on social media, but we're fasting social media. But just read. Tonight's Black History is lesson 2. Lesson 2. All right. A century of Black history. This is the month. Dr. Carter G. Woodson founded this month-long celebration in 1976, and it's all about Black life, history, culture, community. It's a reminder of who we are and what we've done throughout history. 2026 marks the 100th anniversary of Black History Month. And the theme for the year is a century of Black history commendations. All right. Well, as I researched this series, I already knew it was a lot for me to try to teach and break down within these few weeks that we have, and so I know there's a lot for me to study, for me to read and to research, and then to tell you, and so that you get to hear and to understand about you, about me, about us, our history. So I have to keep it really brief and kind of concise so that we can see a lot of the things that happened, and how you can learn about Black history. So tonight I challenge you to celebrate your identity. Um, I challenge you to uh, see who you are, know who you are through these people, the faces of and stories of Black history. There's always good news and bad news, which we don't like to talk about the bad news. We don't even want to hear about bad news, but it's necessary because we need to know the true history. It's important to talk about what happened that gave us the freedoms that we have to go places that were off limit to Blacks, places that had signs that said for whites only, for colored only. It is imperative that we tell the stories of violence and hatred from the past so that we can better understand the violence and hatred that we have now. So I decided to start with some of the bad news. We have a quote. Okay. We have learned to fly the air like birds and swim the sea like fish, but we have not learned the simple art of living together as brothers. Our abundance has brought us neither peace of mind nor serenity of spirit. Martin Luther King Jr. What I'm going to talk about tonight is racial violence in the United States. It includes revolts of the enslaved, urban violence, race riots, uprising, college campus violence. History gives us an awful picture of how badly Blacks have been treated. And so here are a few of the stories. Good evening, Elder Charlie. On March 6, 1863, a white mob attacked Detroit, Michigan's Black population in the city's first race riot. In July 1863, tensions in Detroit finally boiled over during the trial of William Faulkner, a mixed-race man accused of molesting two girls, one of whom was white. Even though Faulkner identified himself as a Spanish Indian and had previously voted, and if you know, at the time, only white men could vote. The Free Press and other newspapers labeled him as a Black man. As far as the white public was concerned, Faulkner was Black and had raped a white girl. When Faulkner was escorted into the courtroom after the first day of his trial, a large crowd of whites harassed him and threw stones. The next day, an even larger mob assembled outside the courthouse. Faulkner was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, but the agitated crowd still attacked him as he was transported back to jail. The Detroit Provost Guard, charged with his protection, fired blanks in an attempt to disperse the crowd. When the mob remained, they fired live ammunition, killing a white bystander named Charles Langer. In total, the mob burned at least 30 buildings, caused thousands of dollars in damage, and injured many African Americans in the streets. By the time that local troops suppressed the riots, at least 200 Black residents were homeless, with some fleeing across the river to Canada. Several years after the riots, Faulkner's accusers recanted their story and he was released from prison. No one was ever held criminally responsible for the death of Langer. Although the Michigan legislature recommended compensating residents for property damage from the riots, the city council refused to do so. That was the riot in the city of Detroit in 1863. Then there was a massacre in November of 1898 in North Carolina, where the Democrats used threats and intimidation to stop African Americans from voting. 2 days after the election, a mob of armed white men marched to the office of the Daily Record, the local African American newspaper, and set it on fire. After they burned the offices, a mob then took the streets and on the north side of town attacked African Americans. An unknown number of African Americans died. Other people, white and Black, were banished from the city. On the same day, local elective officials were forced to resign and were replaced by white supremacist leaders. That's the North Carolina massacre. There was a riot in Atlanta in 1906. Thousands of whites roamed the streets and damaged Black businesses, assaulting and severely beating African Americans. It is estimated that 25 to 40 African Americans were killed. Racist massacres. Nobody's commenting, but it's true, and we need to know about these things. The Tulsa Race Massacre was a 2-day-long white supremacist terrorist massacre that took place in Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma, between May 31st and June 31st of 1921. They attacked Black residents and destroyed homes and businesses. This event is considered one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. Why? Because they burned and destroyed more than 35 square blocks of the neighborhood. At that time, this was one of the wealthiest Black communities in the United States, known as Black Wall Street. More than 800 people were admitted to hospitals, and as many as 6,000 Black residents of Tulsa were jailed. The record says that 36 people died. Wow, Tulsa. That was a Tulsa race. Yes, it is, but we got to know the history. It's not all good. I'm going to give you some good in a minute. Then March 7th, 2000, I'm sorry, I keep wanting to say 2000. I'm so sorry. March 7th, 1965 is called Bloody Sunday, and it refers to that 54-mile-long Selma to Montgomery March, which highlighted the struggle for the African American voting rights. It was named Bloody Sunday because the march was met with violent resistance from Alabama law enforcement. The entire ordeal was broadcast on television, which drew national attention. I am so sure that there are hundreds more incidents that have occurred that are not even mentioned in the news or online. Thousands of dark-skinned people have died as a result of race riots, revolts, fires set on purpose, insurrections, and massacres. It's not new. But my question to us today, is there anything we can do to stop the violence? That's a question. If so, what are we doing? All right, let's move on, because I need to move on to something a little lighter. That's been kind of heavy, as Stefani said. Uh, we're going to move to Black history and the Black church, the Black church in America. There's no pillar uh, of our community that has this more central to its history, identity, and social justice than the Black church. To be sure, there's no single Black church, just as there's no single Black religion, but traditions and of faith that fall under the umbrella of the African American religion, particularly Christianity, constitutes two stories. One, people define themselves in the presence of a higher power, God, and the other of their journey for freedom and equality in a land where power itself and even humanity for so long was and still is denied to them. Well, Spirit and Truth is in a year of revival, right? Guess what? I found out that there was a slave revival in Virginia in 1784, led by a Presbyterian minister, Samuel Davies. In spite of the harsh conditions of slavery, it passionate. He preached to these people. He was one of the earliest missionaries, and they saw a significant increase in the number of African slaves and blacks that were free converting to Christianity. It laid the groundwork for the new growth of evangelism among African Americans. So that tells me revival is not new. We're in a year of revival. Let me give you some church history. Church history. When the enslaved became Christians, they were often required by law to have white ministers and supervision because they feared that the slaves would get the Christian beliefs and that would increase rebellion. The Black church presents many details of racial and religious lifestyles unique to Black history. Black church, Black church. It implies that all Black churches share the same aspirations and strategies. This is not true. Black communities are different based on the region that they're in. They're different based on social lines. They're different economic levels and political philosophies. Black communities in the inner city are totally different sometimes from those that are in the rural communities. Churches make up the oldest institution created and controlled by African Americans, and they are more than simply places of worship. More than just a place of worship. The Black church has influenced nearly every chapter of the African American story. It continues to stimulate Black identity today. The Black church functions on several levels. It's a spiritual center, a place of worship, and a social center. Do you agree? Do you disagree? With the language all its own, symbols all its own, the Black church offered a reprieve from the racist world. It helped us to get away from slavery thoughts and people, because when we came together as a church, we could advance. We could use our singing. We could sing. We could pray. We could shout out our frustrations. That was a way of us getting our frustrations out. I'm talking about in the history of the church, sometimes even today, right? It was a way of saving grace of both enslaved people and the people who were free. It was a place that our people could go to that really allowed them to be, in that sense, free to praise the Lord, to hear a word from someone. And they felt really trapped at that time. So that was their freedom, at least their freedom when they could go to church. Then we're going to talk about Black denominations. There's quite a few Black denominations in the church, within the church. So we're going to just talk about them. And you can make comments if you'd like. Please make some comments because I feel like I'm talking to myself today. The Black Baptist Church, the first known Black churches in America, was created before the American Revolution, called African Baptist or Bluestone Church. This house of worship was founded on the William Byrd Plantation near the Bluestone River in Mecklenburg, Virginia. Then there was the First Baptist Church of Savannah, Georgia, which began in 1777. This is called to be the oldest Black church in North America. It was called the first colored church. And the stone on the front of the church says it was organized in 1773, which means that it's older than the United States of America. The Baptist Church formed their own state conventions, and they still are a huge, powerful institution. It's huge. I talk about the Baptist Church, but I also want to talk about the African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first Black Protestant denomination, and it was founded by Richard Allen. Richard Allen, I wanted to tell the story of Richard Allen because it's very important that we understand. This helps us to understand our freedom. One Sunday morning, Mr. Allen and three of his friends, African-American friends, attended St. George Church in Philadelphia, where they usually worship, unaware that Black people were no longer allowed in the seats, but were now relegated to stand against the walls. Allen and his friends went to the gallery to take their seats and pray. Allen would later recount that one of the trustees approached his friend and physically pulled him up from a position of prayer. Another trustee walked toward William White, another one of his friends, in order to do the same. Discerning that they were unwelcome, Allen and his friends left that church, never to enter again. 30 years later, 1816, Richard Allen gathered 5 congregations together to form a new denomination, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, AME. I think that's an awesome story because this is what had to happen in order for our people to have our own church. The 20th century, another Protestant expression entered the scene, the Pentecostal movement, right? There are many denominations underneath that umbrella of Pentecostal churches. And the first one, the major one that I am familiar with is the Azusa Street Revival, 1906, which was led by William Seymour. And as a result of that, the Church of God in Christ was formed. Now, let's get to something that y'all can talk about, I guess, because y'all not talking to me. I don't want to put nobody to sleep. Let's talk about church music, Black church music. Y'all like church music, right? And the roots began when the African slaves used songs blending their African traditions with Christianity. And when they did that, they were able to express hope, freedom, even sing about their hardships. The lyrics reference biblical stories like the Israelites' bondage and their dreams of being free, offering solace and coded messages. For example, steal away to Jesus. That's an old song that was signaling escape. The earliest precursors to gospel were Negro spirituals, songs created and sung by enslaved people. Spirituals express faith, sorrow, coded messages of escape, as I said before. These were oral tradition, passed down through the generations and often improvised. After slavery, Independent Black churches flourished. Church music began to combine spirituals with European hymns, creating a unique worship style, a passionate style, improvis- improvisational style, and something that people could participate in. All right. Uh, Sometimes after the rural services, the slaves stayed and they continued to sing and in those houses and praised and danced, and they had meetings and secret things that they where they could share their joys and share their problems and share their pains. And these rural meetings, thousands of slaves gathered together and listened to the traveling itinerant preachers and sang spirituals and sang songs. In the late 1700s, they sang the precursors of spirituals, which were called corn ditties. Well, the Underground Railroad helped slaves to run to a free country. A fugitive would use several ways. They walked at night using hand lights and the moonlight. When needed, they waded in the water so that the dogs wouldn't smell their tracks. Then they would jump onto a wagon where they could hide away and ride away. And the reason I'm saying this is because of the songs that came as a result of the Underground Railroad and the things that the people had to do. They Negro spirituals came like Wade in the Water, The Gospel Train, and Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. They directly refer to the Underground Railroad. Modern gospel. I'm looking at this, and as I typed up so many things, I began to think about who, uh, where we got modern gospel from, and it was largely the work of Thomas A. Dorsey, the father of gospel music. He fused blues with sacred lyrics, creating a new emotional, rhythmic gospel sound. His song, Take My Hand, Precious Lord, became a gospel standard. Then we have gospel quartets who brought tight harmony and showmanship, that hand clapping, guitar playing. I put that in especially for my quartet music lovers. I do know that there are some people who love quartet music. Then there were the gospel songs, the gospel groups like the Roberta Martin singers and James Cleveland's choirs, who emphasize harmony and call and response. Now, as I type these songs, I realized that I belong to a senior citizen. I belong to a church with a lot younger people who know nothing about any of these names and the names, the icons that I have just talked about. They know nothing about any of that, right? So I got to bring it a little more closer. And so beyond the 50s and 60s, gospel became a soundtrack for the civil rights movement. They were sung at rallies and marches and churches. The songs like We Shall Overcome and Oh Freedom. And then there's the crossover of music, because there were artists like Sam Cooke and Aretha Franklin who started in the gospel church and then took their vocal songs and style into uh, uh, the soul singing. And then we have in the 80s and the 90s, Kirk Franklin, Yolanda Adams, and Fred Hammond, who went beyond the church walls of singing, and they attracted the younger people, right? So this newer genre includes contemporary music, praise and worship, gospel rap, and then something called gospel EDM, or Christian electronic dance music. I had to look that up. Does anybody know what that is? It's high energy electronic beats like house music and dubstep, it says. But the other Genres that of Black music include. I need you to type some of that in. What are some other genres of Black music, not church music, etc., but what are some other genres of Black music that came as a result of African Americans being here, and what have made some wonderful contributions to the world? So I need you to type in that for me, please. Type in some other types of music. The quote that I have is new to me. I'm telling you, I had to look that up. Okay. All right. I like that. Toy. Jazz. Thank you. Thank you. The blues, hip hop, all of these things. We are involved in all of these areas of music as Black people. Blues, absolutely. R&B. Black people are now basically in all genres of music. So, quote, the church is our foundation. Somehow, to me, it relates to our culture. Music isn't just music, it's a message. Well, it's the same in the church. When you're singing a song, it's not just a song, it's your testimony, it's your story. You're singing with purpose and to God. Author unknown. Well, I'm going to move from the music to the historical faith leaders and pioneers. There are some people who helped shape religion in America, not just the ones that we know about, Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, but there's some other people. And I wanted just to talk about quartet music. Absolutely. That's what I said earlier. Let's talk about a few of those people. Peter Spencer was a slave who was freed following his master's death, and he's the father of independent Black church movement that swept the United States in the late 1600s. Jarena Lee, I like her. She's 1783. After pursuing her call to preach, Jarena Lee was the first woman authorized to preach in the AME church. Around 1807, Jarena felt like God was calling her to be a preacher. Women were not allowed to speak in most Christian churches in early America. Still the same in some churches. Her quote, if the man may preach because the Savior died for him, why not the woman, seeing he died for her also? Is he not a whole Savior instead of a half one? That was Jarena Lee's quote. She walked thousands of miles on foot to preach the gospel and authored the first published autobiography by an African American woman. There was a woman named Jane Mannings. She was known as Aunt Jane, and she was one of the first pioneers to go to Utah and become part of the Salt Lake City Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. Elias Camp Morris, one of the founders of the National Baptist Convention. We have Augustus Tolton, a former slave, was one of the first Black Catholic priests in the United States. He studied for the priesthood in Rome and was ordained in 1886. William Seymour was the son of two free slaves who led that Azusa revival, and he became the driving force in the Pentecostal and charismatic movement. Noble Drew Ally introduced Islam to many Black Americans. After his death, Wallace Fard Muhammad broke away from the organization and founded the Nation of Islam. Then we have Sister Thea Bowman. She was the first Black nun in her religious congregation. She became the first Black woman to address the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. I like her. I like her a lot. We didn't know about these people who were part of the religious movement, historical leaders and pioneers. But I want you to, now you can't say you didn't know about these people. Well, my time is moving. Let's talk about Black history and American education. There's a quote. Won't it be wonderful when Black history and Native American history and Jewish history and all of U.S. history is taught from one book, just United States history? Maya Angelou. There's so much that has happened as a result of United States and the African American struggle for literacy. They face strict illegal prohibitions just trying to learn to read or write. They pursued their education with institutions like the free schools. And when we think about these things today, I want you to think about them because we enjoy so many freedoms and we take them for granted. There was a struggle. There was a Little Rock Nine, who were a group of 9 Black students enrolled in a formerly all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. It was a test of the board versus Brown versus the Board of Education, which was a Supreme Court ruling that declared segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. The governor of Arkansas hated that so much that he called the Arkansas National Guard to block those students from entering. The president, which was Dwight Eisenhower, sent in federal troops to escort them to school. Then in September, a year after the school was integrated, the governor closed all of the Little Rock high schools for an entire year. I only wrote, wow. All of this to keep us from getting an education. But we continue to persevere. We continue to push to get that education that was due us. The law even was behind us. So now we have Black high schools and we have Black colleges, historically Black colleges and universities. The first one was Cheney University of Pennsylvania. And then we have the Wilberforce University, and it was the first HBC university to be owned and run by African Americans. Can you pass another Black history exam, a test, a quiz? So here it is for you. In what year did the final state recognize Martin Luther King Day as a holiday? 1984, 1991, 2000, or 2021? In what year did the final state, because they didn't all accept it, recognize Martin Luther King Day as a holiday? I got 1991. Hi, Mother Dolly. No. Anybody else want to take a chance? It was actually 2000. South Carolina. That was they didn't make it a paid holiday until May of 2000. Wow. All right. Let me just quickly talk about, I'm looking at my time, and I always like to look at the time because I want to be sure that I try to get as much as I can to you in the time allotted. Let's talk about some Black trailblazers. Ours is not a struggle of one day, 1 week, this is a quote, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or presidential term. Ours is a struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even lifetimes. And each one of us is every generation must do our part. It's not a struggle for just a day. It's not a struggle for 1 week or a year. We have to keep struggling. It hasn't stopped, ladies and gentlemen. But I want to talk about, in commemoration of some Black first, people who did things first, right? Hi, Faith. In sports, we have, let's see, we got Jackie Robinson, who was the first African American Major League Baseball player. We have Wilma Rudolph, was an African American athlete who became the first woman to win 3 medals in the Summer Olympics in 1960. She went home and she refused to participate in a celebratory parade because it was going to be segregated. As a result, they had a banquet and threw a parade, and they integrated it in her hometown of Clarksville, Tennessee. I think we're all familiar with the first in government. We have Hiram Rhodes, rebel in Mississippi, the first Black member of the U.S. Senate. We have Colin Powell, who served as the first African American in the United States Senate. We have John Mercer Langston, who was the first Black man to become a lawyer in Ohio when he passed the bar in 1854. Thurgood Marshall, we're all familiar with him. He was the first African American justice appointed to the United States Supreme Court. We have Shirley Chisholm, we talked about her last week, of New York, become the first Black woman elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. And then she made history again as the first Black woman from a major political party to run for president of the United States. 2008, we have Barack Obama, became the first Black president of the United States. His inauguration was attended by 1.8 million people. Wow. And then in journalism, we're familiar with Phyllis Wheatley, who was sold as a child into slavery, but she was the first Black woman published in America. Toni Morrison, she was an American novelist. She was the first Black woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. And in entertainment, our people, when we talk about the inventors last week, now we're talking about people who were the first to do some things in our time. In entertainment, the first African-American Oscar winner, Hattie McDaniel, won for her role in the movie Gone with the Wind in 1940. Then in business, I'm skipping. In business, we have a self-made millionaire, Madam C.J. Walker. She founded the Madam C.J. Walker Company in 1910. In 2001, Robert Johnson became the first Black billionaire when he sold the cable network he founded, Black Entertainment Television, BET, to Viacom. Johnson took out a $15,000 loan to launch BET in 1980. When he sold the channel, it reached 62.4 million homes. In medicine, we have Dr. Rebecca Crumpler, who was the first African-American woman to earn a medical degree. Dr. James McCune, the first African-American to hold a medical degree and the first African-American to run a pharmacy. We already talked about George Washington Carver. I like George Washington Carver because he was the first African-American to earn a Bachelor of Science degree, but he was known as the Peanut Man. He created 300 products from peanuts. Don't tell me that our people are not smart, that our people don't know how to do things, because they do. They're smart. The first in aviation, Bessie Coleman was the first African-American woman to earn a pilot's license. She overcame racial barriers by training in France when opportunities were denied to her in the United States. Commander Victor Glover made history as the first African American to serve as a pilot on SpaceX's first operational mission to the International Space Station. He spent 168 days in space. First American Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, Ralph Bunche. First African American woman to win a Pulitzer Prize, Gwendolyn Brooks. Well, what do you think? Do you think about what our contributions have been when we recognize that other people don't? We need to recognize them ourselves. Recognize that we are powerful people. Recognize that we're smart people. Recognize who we are. It's Black History Month, but it isn't just Black History for a month. We're Black all the time. 365 days, 64 days of the year, we're Black. And we, if nobody else, should know our history. We should know who we are, what we have done, and what we are doing, because it hasn't stopped. Now, if you remember, we have our aim is to remind us that we make Black history every day. Our theme is Tales of Blackness, then, now, and forever. Well, let's take a real quick test, because I'm a teacher, so let's take a real quick test. Let's take a test. It's time for a test. Do you know what happened on these dates? January 1st, 1863. January 15th, 1929. February 3rd, 1870. May 17th, 1954. June 19th, 1865. And then October 16th, 1995. Tay, we are Black all the time. I love that. It's Black history every day for us. And you, all of you that are watching today, you are to create Black history. Create some Black history. All right. So that's part of the test. Anybody know when any of those dates are? What happened on any of those dates? I don't see my history teacher on here tonight. What are any of those dates? I know that I'm only going to give you one, and I need you to look at them again. Thank you. Emancipation Proclamation. Anybody else? January 15th, you should know that one too. Martin Luther King's birthday. There we go, Latoya. June 19th is Juneteenth. Juneteenth, which is another celebration, which only President Biden only officially established it as a national holiday in 2021. But Black people have been celebrating it for years, but he only made it a national holiday. All right. October 16th was a Million Man March that took place in Washington, D.C. It said the crowd size reached over 1 million people. Over 1 million people. There we go. That's it. That's the Brown versus Board of Education. See, y'all can look it up on your phone. You know that you can look it up on your phone, but we should know those landmark days that people strive, people died. And I want our young people to know that people died so that you can walk into stores you walk into, that you can do some of the things that we do. It's not free. Somebody died for you to be able to do that. That you can open up books and read them because they're there for you to read. All right. I'm not going to preach anymore. Next week, I'm going to be asking, what do you know about your DNA? What do you know about your DNA? We're going to talk about DNA next week. All right. We have some announcements. Upcoming events. You're welcome, Tay. Don't forget that we have the daily prayer call, 6:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, 6:30 p.m. Monday through Wednesday, and 6:30 p.m. on Fridays. The number is 518-425-1603. First Black woman neurosurgeon. That's right. I forgot about her. Thank you, Alexa Kennedy. I'm glad it's sobering. I want it to be. We want it to be. And don't forget the second and third Saturdays at 8:30 a.m. is our men's ministry Zoom meeting. And the Zoom meeting for the women is the second and third Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. SWAT meeting.
If you are willing to be a financial blessing to this ministry and receive the favor of God on your life, you can do so in one of several ways. First, on your Apple or Android phones, download the Givelify app. Once downloaded, look for the Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries logo, then just tap Give, and you're done. If you utilize PayPal, you can go to @Spirit, the letter N, Truth. That's @Spirit&Truth on PayPal. We always encourage you to go to our website. You can find us at linktree/Spirit and Truth CM. That's linktr.ee/Spirit, the letter N, Truth CM. Finally, if you utilize Cash App, you can give there in one of two ways. First, you can go directly to the church. That's Cash App, $Spirit, the letter N, Truth CM, or you can give directly to the woman of God by typing in $Thomasine Faulkner. Thank you for sharing in 1 hour in the Word, the online teaching ministry of Spirit and Truth Christian Ministries. Spirit and Truth is a wonderful place to be, even when you can't be in the place. Join us next week as our pastor of spiritual formation, Reverend Dr. Thomasine Petty Faulkner, continues to instruct us in the Word of God. Until then, this is the senior pastor of Spirit and Truth, Bishop J.A. Williams II, encouraging you as always to stay safe and stay saved.
Spirit and truth, yes. Place to be.